I walked out of here with no father, Your Honor. Nobody. I don't have nothing now.
I'm still gonna be here.
I don't want to keep going through this.
He's still your family.
That boy is my world. And it's like you guys don't give a crap about how I feel or how it feels to not have my son. But
I know exactly how you feel. I know exactly how you feel.
No, you don't, because
yes,
if you
I
did.
do.
Why did you leave? Did you even know about me? If you did, would it have even changed anything? And would you have been proud of me? Why was I not good enough? From the moment that I couldn't remember, I've always really wanted just my dad.
Mr. Benning's recent appearance on the couple's court led to the revelation of his wife's infidelity, and this had led him to doubt the paternity of both his children. With their marriage on the rocks, Mr. Benning wants DNA proof to save their love.
Mr. Benning, you recently appeared in couple's court and it was confirmed that the defendant cheated on you. This infidelity has caused questions regarding your 2-year-old daughter, Robin, and 6-month-old son, Jermaine Jr.'s paternity. Although you are hopeful that both are your children, you now have doubts. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
However, Miss Bodine's swindling ended up sabotaging the plaintiff's dream of having a daughter, which was draining him after losing his mother at a young age. He always wished for a daughter.
Tell me about that relationship.
We are so close. She's goofy, she loves daddy. She's a daddy's baby. We love to play, chase each other around. Goldfish is our snack. We love goldfish.
It's our snack. I love how you said that.
So you can imagine how ecstatic he was about becoming a father, and even Mommy did not doubt him being the father. Don't forget she had this assumption even after cheating on him, but truth has its way coming. Let's watch how the poor daddy found out about the other guy.
It actually happened during labor, Your Honor. I was in the hospital sitting across from Kayla. She was pushing this baby out, and I received a text from a guy telling me to leave the hospital because that's his baby and he needs to be there.
Even though the news was devastating enough to break him down, Mr. Benning was not ready to give up on both ladies halfway, so he went on and signed the birth certificate. Listening to this, the judge asked the mommy why she was so certain that Mr. Benning had fathered her children, and she explained herself.
How do you know this other guy is not the biological father?
Because, Your Honor, I stood up and did the woman and the mother thing I had to do and got the other guy tested.
Oh, so you had a DNA test on the other guy already?
Yes.
My, what a plot twist. Surely you didn't see that coming. But the truth is that the defendant had been busy with more than one person. And believe it or not, Miss Bodine may be claiming he is the father in front of the judge. But every time things got drifty, she shoved, "You are not the father," in Mr. Benning's face.
Quite a few. First off, the DNA test doesn't mean anything considering the fact that she's cheated on me with more than one person.
Oh.
There could be other guys out there, that's just one,
Now, that's the plot twist.
As well as, Your Honor, anytime that something is wrong, I'm also reminded, oh, you're not her father.
All this surely ripped more than one can handle, but Mommy had no remorse for any of her actions. She was just in for tit for tat, ignoring how all of this was distorting her family. See, when things get this vicious, your only option is paternity court.
I do want you to explain to Miss Bodine, because I feel like, Miss Bodine, to say someone is not the father of a child, now that's a little below the belt.
That's not just hurting somebody's feelings,
Yeah.
ruining somebody's life.
Watching the muskiness across the podium was hard to whitewash, and even the judge was getting frustrated by the defendant acting cold to the guy doped in his marriage. Nonetheless, we know that Judge never let such things go down that easily.
Texting me, telling me I'm not the father. I even received a text telling me after he was born, which I still went through the whole labor, everything. After that, after all that, I get a text telling me, oh, I want a paternity test for Jermaine too.
Further text messages prove where shown in the courtroom, showing what level the defendant had stooped to, which called for the judge to give a reality check on the self-obsessed mother.
You sent that text, Miss Bodine?
Yes, Your Honor, I did.
Did you send it for good reason, or were you just being vindictive and mean?
Vindictive and mean, trying to hurt your feelings. We had gotten to an argument and he said stuff, may or may not been true.
They're not arguments. These are not arguments that these texts come from. These are, Jermaine, can you come over and hang out? I don't want to.
Either way, both sides and the judge were hoping the plaintiff was the father, as if not, it will damage the kids for their whole life. Let's see if fate will have mercy on them or not.
Mr. Benning, you are not the father. Mr. Benning, you are not the father.
What the?
Oh.
I got cribs and playpens and toys, and I've done everything that I do. And
Mr. Brown was recently informed that he has been living a lie that 18-month-old Colby is his son. Even though he had full custody, he is afraid that this revelation will separate him from his son. And his assumptions are right because Ms. Stewart wants her back and Mr. Brown is gone for good.
Ms. Stewart, you admit you kept the secret from Mr. Brown, but claim the truth is the truth. And the fact is, you were secretly cheating on him, and you appear in court today to prove that the other man is the father.
Yes, sir.
So when the judge asked the plaintiff what was at stake for him, Mr. Brown told the court he could risk losing the kid, as his whole family took him as their family, and if his mother takes him away, it will ruin his life, and he can provide for the kid more efficiently than the mother.
So, Mr. Brown, tell us, what's at stake for you today?
Everything's at stake, Your Honor. My whole entire family knows him as theirs. I have 2 grandmas that have Alzheimer's that know him as their grandsons. My 14-year-old son knows him as his little brother.
However, when the judge asked the alleged daddy how he found out about him not being the father, Mr. Brown told the court that after separating from him, Mommy left the kid at his place trying to move out, but instead of coming to pick Colby up herself, Miss Stewart called in, "The cops on him."
That's not my kid. Why didn't you come that day with the cops?
So what happened when she brought the police to your house?
You know, by that time, I'd already talked to 1 district attorney and 3 police officers who told me the same thing that I already knew, that by law, I did not have to give him back due to the fact I signed the paternity affidavit. I was on the birth certificate.
So the guy was even on the birth certificate. I mean, why wouldn't he be playing the daddy part this long? But Miss Stewart TT was not ready to do that easily. She was in paternity court to take the child with her for once and all.
The cop that she brought was probably the only one on the force she could get to side with her, and he came and told me it was in my best judgment that I give the child back. And I asked him if it was in, my best judgment or if by law I had to. And he said in his opinion he thought that I needed to, but there's nothing he could do about it.
Baby mama was so addicted to the court that she knew long enough that the plaintiff was not the father and kept putting off the truth so she could be with him. But since they were separated, there was no reason to hide anything.
Miss Stewart, why did you wait so long to tell him? Like, why not tell him before so he would have never had the child in the first place?
Because, Your Honor, I really truly believe that my son was Mr. Brown's. Because at that time, yes, I went to another friend to comfort me. Because at this time, Mr. Brown and I had decided to take a break.
This was a paternity mess. Still, the judge was hung on the part that if Miss was really sure about the other guy being the father, or if she was doing all of this out of spite, because they get that a lot in this reality court, don't we? And this is how the defendant responded to the question.
So I went in that time and talked to a friend like I always do. Comforting friends, and one thing led to another, and my son was conceived June 13th. So honestly, when my son was born, my son did look like Mr. Brown, and it looked like the son of his family. So that is why I have withheld, because I was happy.
After that revelation, the judge moved to Mr. Brown to ask how he took the revelation, as I'm sure he would have never seen this coming, and the plaintiff testified the same. In Mr. Brown's exact words, he was dumbfounded. Who wouldn't be?
I've lost a lot of sleep. I've shed a lot of tears over this whole situation. I mean, I'm the only thing about that.
You first got the news from her and she dropped this bomb on you. Did you say, I want a DNA test? Did you think to get a DNA test?
Yes, Your Honor. I called DHS and talked to them, and they informed me that I needed to call.
But wait, this is the part where things get tricky. Though the ex-wife was claiming he was not the father, she had already filed child support on this guy, even before he could get a DNA test. Talk about being unfair.
Does the DNA test in the state that we live in? When I went down and filled out the paperwork, once they started running it, they informed me that I couldn't do the DNA test because Miss Stewart had already filed child support on me.
Wait, now, you're saying he's not the child's biological father and you know that for certain,
yes.
And yet you filed to try to get him to pay child support? How does he get an open case?
I don't know, Your Honor. I'm not even quite sure. I don't understand that.
Following this judge called the whiteness from the plaintiff's side, who told the court about what excellent the alleged days were doing with raising the child, and if it wasn't for mommy, he can live a comfortable life.
I know that right now I am both emotionally and financially involved in this whole situation. I love this man with all my heart. I know that he loves Colby with all his heart. He takes very good care of him. He's the best father in the world to that little boy, and I know this is going to devastate him completely if that's not his son. And I know the other gentleman that is supposedly the father. I've known him for a couple years actually, and I've actually talked to him, so I do know that they have slept together because he did admit that to me.
So the other guy was no show. Colby's only chance at fatherhood was the guy at the podium. If he steps down, mommy will have no one to turn to. Nonetheless, the only result can determine how things will go down.
Mr. Brown, you are not the father.
I told you.
All right. Mr. Brown, you need to sit down. You need to take a seat.
Your Honor,
I'm so sorry.
I just don't understand how someone could do that to somebody. 18 months. It's a long time.
After suffering from years of lies from your mother and uncertainty about who your father is, Ms. Lindsay is in court with the candidate, whom everyone in town claims to be her father, but both her mother and potential father are testifying otherwise.
Ms. Lindsay, you say that after years of lies from your mother and uncertainty about who your father is, you believe you finally found him.
Yes, Your Honor.
You say everyone in town, including his family, knows Mr. Dannenbrink is your father, and you intend to prove that today. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
The alleged daddy stated unequivocally that he had nothing to do with the child because their dynamic was more like hit and quiet sort of, and he was never informed about having a daughter. But the judge was concerned about the rumors in the whole town.
So about 35 years ago, my mom does admit to having a child with Mr. Dannenbrink. And
How many years ago?
About 35, around there.
Okay.
And when I was about 16 years old, an ex of Mr. Dannenbrink's came to my house and accused me of being the child that they had together.
The plaintiff further told the court that when she was 16 years old, an ex of Mr. Dannenbrink came to the place and revealed that she was her man's daughter. And at first, it was hard for the plaintiff to imagine so, and she responded to the situation like this.
First, I was like, what? You're wrong. There's no way. And I came to my mother and I talked to her about it, and she told me no, that he was not my father, that another man that she had told me was my dad was my dad.
She said this other man is your father, but you'd never met that man.
No.
After confirming with his mother, the plaintiff gave up the idea of the defendant being her father, but when they both got cozy again, Ms. Lindsay's hope of Mr. Dannenbrink being the father rekindled. Still, she didn't dare to address the dilemma.
We lived right next door to each other, and we started having barbecues together and spent a few holidays together and things like that.
The man next door, your neighbor.
Yes.
You believe he's your biological father.
Yes.
But you've never said anything to him.
Not really.
When judged naked, mommy about it, she blamed it on the 70s as people were hooking up back then for no reason. And as for them, they were both involved in other people and had just recently come close to each other. Still, their relationship was platonic. Upon hearing that Judge moved to the different to take his take on the situation.
So, Mr. Dannenbrink, did you know about the pregnancy?
I did not, Your Honor. She never told me that she was pregnant. She never told me I even had a child.
You didn't
Your
tell
Honor,
him you were
Your
pregnant?
Honor, I had no reason to tell him because he's not the father.
So you were confident of that?
Yes.
Up next, the defendant handed her own mother's conception calendar to the court, a little odd to watch. Still, you gotta do what you do. So the calendar showed that she was a full-term baby, but her mother claimed otherwise, while the defendant had no recollection of it.
Thank you. You're welcome. What does this calendar outline?
This calendar shows, for one, the day that I was born. And if you count back, if I was born full term, the conception would be between May and June. And the doctors did say that I was born a month premature, which puts my due date at March 11th, which my mother would be right at that time.
The bump and go had taken a toll on the plaintiff's lives. She had a clue about her paternity, and her mother was no help at all. She told the court that she couldn't go on like this. Her only option was that DNA holding envelope. So let's get to that.
Mr. Dannenbrink, you are not her father.
Sorry. It doesn't matter. I consider her my daughter.
How are you feeling, Miss Lindsay? I know this was difficult for you.
Confused, but I'm happy at the same time for closure on that part.
Mr. Morris is in paternity court to claim the paternity of his 29-year-old daughter, but the woman standing across the aisle is not ready to believe the plaintiff, as she believes that her mother has lied enough to her and only DNA proof can put an end to the situation.
Mr. Morris, you say you are 100% certain that you are the biological father of the 29-year-old woman standing across the aisle and want this court to put an end to years of confusion, lies, and doubt. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So the trial begins with Mr. Morris telling his story about how he met the woman of his dreams at a dancing party, and they were together for 2 years. And even after they had broken up, the defendant came back for his daughter, but the mommy pushed him away like this.
But at the time when I talked to her, the 2 days I was in town to see Mrs. Smith, we had an issue, and she told me to my face that, none of her children were mine. So I left.
So how old was Miss Brister at this time?
I would say she had to be 5, maybe 5 or 6.
Seeing things like these can easily stir up paternity doubt, but in the mommy's defense, she didn't want to get back with her ex. She further had Miss Brister believe that the guy on her birth certificate was her father.
My mom taking me to get a DNA test, and I didn't remember the results at that time, but I do have a faint memory of her saying that he wasn't my father.
You brought an exhibit for the court?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see it, please.
This is just a timeline of some of the things that she's told me over the years.
All these sudden revelations were causing turmoil in the defendant's life. It was hurtful and confusing, and when the judge asked Miss Smith why she had lined up so many stories, she confessed that she was doing so to protect her daughter from her father's style.
And how old were you when this happened? This started when you were how old?
This started when I was, I think, around like 8, 9, maybe 10, when I was told, when I remember.
When you remember
her saying that the man on my birth certificate wasn't my father.
But when the judge asked Mr. Morris about this, he told the court that he had no idea about any of the stores going around. Further, he informed the court that he was charged with the defendant's child support. However, Miss Brister seemed unconcerned about all of it.
I don't remember that. But if you've known that I was your daughter, it's kind of like, why didn't you reach out? Why didn't your family reach out?
Because
nobody said anything in all these years. So now that I'm about to be 30, and here it is, you saying you're 100% sure.
By now, it seemed like that trio was stuck on a roller coaster of fate, and all of these years had gone by without the truth being revealed. So I guess it was about the right time to set the record straight.
Mr. Morris.
Yes, Sean.
You are not her father.
What?
I'm very sorry.
Can I hug my daughter?
Absolutely. Is that okay?
Sorry.
You can stand with your daughter, ma'am. Miss Brister?
Yes.
Are you okay?
I am. I'm glad to know, it's one step closer.
Yes.
Just 1 month ago, Mr. Peterson's wife revealed that his 22-year-old daughter, LaJoya Jackson, may not be your biological daughter, which has ruined his life since. But Mrs. Peterson, though she admits cheating, still believes that her husband is the father.
Mr. Peterson, just 1 month ago, your world came crumbling down when your wife, Mrs. Peterson, revealed she had been keeping a secret, that your 22-year-old daughter, LaJoya Jackson, may not be your biological daughter. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Quite odd they had been married for such a long time. Who can manage to keep such a long secret? But in Miss Peterson's defense, didn't want to harm my family or break what they had built, whereas the plaintiff claimed that he had no idea about his wife being involved with any other man.
When we first got together, I thought she was a virgin. I asked her about past relationships. She told me that they were not sexually active, but she did have other boyfriends before me. So that's why I'm where I'm at now.
And that's why you had no question.
Right.
Up next, the judge asked the daughter how she first heard this news. Apparently, she had a suspicion for almost a year now, because a guy just randomly came up to her door and told her that he was her father. But when she asked her mother, Miss Peterson totally denied it. Nonetheless, doubts don't go away that easily, do they?
My mother, which is the conversation that my father, Mr. Peterson, walked in on, and asked her, do you want to just go and do it so that, just for my clarity, because I'm feeling some type of way about it, And she had never admitted that there was a possibility of one guy being my father, potentially being my father. And then I found out there were multiple guys that could possibly be my father.
Wow, what a brutal way to find such a thing, isn't it? And understandably, it had taken the whole family down. They had gotten to the point from daily arguing to not speaking at all, and Mrs. Peterson sleeping in the car in the driveway. They were slowly crumbling and disappearing from each other's life. And you, woman at the altar, blamed herself for it. However, this testimony made the father go like this.
Going through this, Mr. Peterson, this hurts.
A lot.
I can see.
A lot. I tried very hard to stay around and be there, especially for the grandkids, because my grandparents were there for me, and I want to be that same type of example to them. And they call me grandpa, and every time I see them, I love you, and run up to me and give me a hug, and that touches me.
Clearly missed. Peterson's fear of losing her family had ruined her family, and now they all lack trust in her word. So we know when things get this messy, the only solution is a DNA result.
Mr. Beckham, you are not her father. Mr. Peterson, you are not her father.
Oh my God. Are you serious? Really, Mom? Every time, though. Like, I came and asked you, just tell me before we go, do you know? Oh, I know he's the father. I know. I thought you knew, Mom. I thought you knew.
I thought
you knew.
I'm sorry. I did think he was your father.